This is the Bat Pod.
Grab your bat microphone, it's time to start the show. Like a court of owls, the mystery is starting to grow. Let there be no debate, it's about to begin. Keen like Bruce Wayne, quick like Tim Drake, fierce like Damien. Grab your headphones, listen up, you know you love it. Drop the facade. Like the Dark Knight Detective, they've got some perspective. They're a pure crime-fighting collective. It's the Bat Pod.
Welcome to the Bat Pod, episode 103. I'm your host, Bill Beer, and joining me tonight, or today, or this morning, Paul Hicks.
Hello. How you doing?
Good. How's it going, sir?
I'm very well, thanks. I have the post-Christmas glow, a few days off work. It's very nice.
Oh, yes, I have to agree that I took the week off. It's the first time I've taken the week off in some time, and it doesn't feel bad. I'm recovering nicely.
Ah.
So, when I asked you to be on the show, I said that we're going to do Holy Back Issues Batman. And before we get to the issue that you picked for this episode, I wanted to ask, as I ask everybody that comes on here, what is your Batman comic book origin?
Golly. Well, I just listened to your last episode, and this sounds terribly unoriginal, but I think The Killing Joke was the first Batman comic I read. Because I think we had a boarder in the house at the time, and he had a few comics with him, and I read The Killing Joke. I read some Alan Moore stuff with Swamp Thing, and I thought, these comics are pretty good. So then I probably just started, I had a job then, so I probably started purchasing comics that I liked the look of. And I would have been diving in around the Alan Grant, Norm Brayfogle run. That would have been the first stuff that I started picking up regularly. Yeah, so I have a real soft spot for that post-crisis 80s Batman goodness.
I was right in that general area also, right around Batman 400.
Yeah, okay.
So I was right in that same area, so.
Yeah, and a pretty good time to be a Batman fan. I love the explosion of all those new villains that came out around then, like the Ventriloquist and Mr. Zaz and things like that. It's just fun.
Yeah, right, absolutely. It was fun, and a lot of those villains has hung around till today, and I'd like to see, and if people probably have heard this before, that's my favorite underappreciated villain is the Ventriloquist and Scarface. I want to see more of them today. But yeah, I really enjoyed those stories. So
yeah, obviously in live action they've really balked at that. They've just gone, not too silly, can't do it. But
right.
Yeah,
which I can understand to a certain extent. I mean, I can't really imagine, like the Batman movie, and it would have to be a really weird, non-corny version, however that would be. I don't know, I'm not a writer or anything like that, but it would have to be something more realistic, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, you'd want it to be done with a fairly black humor approach, and you'd want it to see it, not done completely straight and certainly not done completely silly, but, something in the middle. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I asked you to, when we were talking, messaging back and forth, I asked you to pick a back issue, one of your favorite back issues, or an issue that you wanted to talk about. So tell us, what issue did you pick?
It's got a fairly long title, but it's Batman Chronicles The Gauntlet. It came out, when did it come out? 97, I think?
97.
Yeah, and it's when DC were doing so many prestige format editions. So they had, I think Killing Joke was probably the first prestige format book they did. And then around the time of the JLA, every single second, everything they were publishing was prestige format. There were so many one-shots and miniseries coming out in prestige format. And they did quite a few with the Batman, mostly Elseworlds, I'd say we'd call them. But This one was a rare one because it was basically exploring the origin of Dick Grayson as Robin, and kind of giving it the serious treatment. And if you look at this, I mean, visually, it's art by Lee Weeks, who very underrated, great work on Daredevil and everything.
Oh,
and
yes.
And it really complements, I think, Batman Year One, the style and look of that. And it's like, I mean, everyone loves Dick Grayson, but I don't think there are many really good Robin stories of Dick Grayson. You've got the Titan stuff, which is, he's just running around with sexy people and doing all this insane things that never make sense but seem to work out. Like, it's a trap. We'll run straight into it.
You have a good point, though, about Robin Dick Grayson stories, because this one, I believe, was reprinted for the Robin, the anniversary.
The 80 Years of Robin, yes.
Yes, 80 Years of Robin. There's only so many Dick Grayson Robin stories, that you can count like on one hand, at least for me. And this one was really, really a good one, I do have to say.
Yeah, well, you got Robin Year One, the 4-part oversized, again, prestige. Yep. So that was a really good one. But, this was a little one-shot that just came out, and it just sits really nicely on your shelf between Year One and, Batman Year One and Robin Year One. It's just, it's a nice little bridging story. I thought let's focus on that. And I looked it up. It is on DC Universe Infinite, which I wasn't sure if it was, because I for a long time I thought I was the only person who really liked this issue and, really valued it. But, I didn't know it'd been reprinted. I discovered that last night in my research. So, yeah, that's exciting. And you were familiar with it before this?
Yes, I had read it. The funny thing, I don't have this issue, but I have it on, Comixology, but it's sandwiched in with the Batman Chronicles series.
Yeah.
Which is a little odd because I don't think it was meant to be that way, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, it is technically titled Batman Chronicles, so it's a special related to that series. And that was, I think they were like 80-page issues that came out around, it's before, well, it went through No Man's Land and Cataclysm and things like that. So,
yeah.
There's a Batman Chronicles issue I have, which is one of the very early appearances of Hitman just before his ongoing started, which,
yes.
That's the one where he makes, Batman punches him and he throws up on Batman. Good times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not a very complicated story, but I guess the elevator pitch of it is Robin has to spend 24 hours in Gotham evading Batman to complete his final test to become a Batman registered crime fighter, I guess we'd say. So, he's done all his training, and this is the test. Things don't go to plan, which, so there's some fairly old style mobsters. They're very 50s mobsters who are, they're...
they seem like it.
Yeah, but they've discovered a mole in their organization who's working for Commissioner Gordon, and they're going to rub him out, and Robin intervenes just as they're intercepting him and basically ends up saving this guy's life but carrying off the evidence that everyone is after. So the mob basically mobilise to go and get Robin. At the same time, Batman realises that Robin is in danger and starts trying to track Robin. And Robin is, teasing Batman with clues. So it's a little bit of a cat and mouse as the mob track down Robin and Batman tracks down Robin to save him. And, it's just spread across Gotham, and it has, it would be... the story would be too small for a movie, but too big for a TV show, I'd say. Like it has a barge full of fireworks going up at the end, which,
Right. The way that this is stylized as we get into here, and you mentioned it's supposed to look like sort of like Year One, and it does take me. That's the one feeling that I got when I started reading this is, it took me back to Year One, and I got that exact vibe.
Yeah, it's the art and the realism of it, but it's the style, like the fact Batman will chuck 4 tiny little batarangs all at once, and they'll go into someone's arm in a nice spray pattern that, makes it look like they're wearing a gauntlet suddenly. And, imagine that. Imagine having 4 batarangs land in your arm at the same time. Wouldn't that hurt?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so. And the one thing you get here, he's sending Robin through this gauntlet, his little training process or whatever you want to call it. And everybody is like, Alfred's like, I don't think this is a good idea that you send this child on this, to become part of this violent world that you're associated with. And I think he had a very good explanation here, which he said basically that he didn't really get a chance to grieve. He didn't have an outlet to have that anger, release that anger or his grief, and he's giving Dick an outlet.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was pretty amazing writing right there, because I never even thought about that before, but I did like seeing that there.
Yeah, it's the chance for this young lad to not be consumed by grief, but to, have adventures, I guess. Well, channeling this anger into something productive and helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good way of marrying all, the coolness of Nightwing with the legacy of Robin. So, you can see this is the Robin who is Nightwing, the one who, all the women love and etc. And, we're living in an age where it's great to have a fantastic Nightwing book out at the moment. And, having that Tom Taylor Nightwing run, when you read old Robin stories and he's unhappy and angsty and everything, it just doesn't sit right. Like, you think, no, Robin's confident and cool and, happy and, is doing the right thing easily and impressive. And, so when you see him struggling, it's kind of like, no, I don't feel right about this anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But
absolutely. I should mention this is written by Bruce Campbell, and I was like, well, who is Bruce Campbell? I don't know that name. And as far as I can find, he's only ever written this and one other Bat story in another issue of the Chronicles, as it were, which was, I think it's in Cataclysm Aftermath or Aftershocks.
Okay.
Yeah, which I haven't read, but I've actually downloaded on Infinite to follow up with. But as far as I can tell, he's a comic book historian who now works for IDW on their special projects. So I think I think the Alex Toth books that have been, high-end coffee table type volumes, I think there's a series of them. He's been in charge of those. So, it's not written by someone who comes across as a noob. Like seems to be able to structure a good story. He doesn't do all the over dialoguing that an author might do coming into comics. Like, he seems to know the form, and it seems like it's not inconsistent with what you'd get from Brubaker or Rucker or people like that. It's it's well written, and it flows really well. And Lee Weeks' art is just a joy throughout this. Like, the panel to panel story flow and just the musculature of Batman and Robin. There's a lot of Batman thighs as he kicks people and everything, and it's just really beautiful to look at. And I
like the way that they, it's the inks, with the mobster's face. They look evil. Especially when they're in the car.
Yeah.
And different things. I really like the way that they were drawn, and Robin is super bright, and those guys are super they got a lot of lines on their faces and that sort of thing. So
yeah, they all look like they're played by giant stuntmen, all the mobsters.
Right. They're like the old school, mobster movies. You could took those guys out of the movies and put them in right here, and it would fit perfectly.
Yeah, and the main heavy in it is called Del Kane, and he looks very much like Flask from Year One as well.
Yes.
Yeah, like the very Aryan haircut and broad shoulders, etc. So, yeah, but just it has car chases, it has explosions, it has they're not they're really game to kill a kid in this, aren't they? Particularly when they discover it would upset Batman. They're like, oh, beauty, let's do it.
Right. They were like, yeah, this has something to do with Batman. Let's take out the kid.
Yeah. And you get, detecting from Batman because Robin is leaving him clues. And, I'm always interested because, if you had to write a Batman story and you wanted him to be a detective, you basically have to come up with something for him to solve. So there's, Robin is leaving him ciphers and things like that. And at first you don't realize what's happening and Batman's just going from place to place, but then they backtrack in the dialogue and explain, how he knew what things were. And, there's a code that there's some of the numbers are missing and Batman sees those numbers are missing and uses that to find an address. And there's one where he writes a number, but you know how you could write boobies on the calculator and turn it upside down?
Right.
He does a street name using numbers, so Batman turns it in, sees the reflection and works out where he's gone. So, there's that sort of shtick, which is fun in a Batman story and isn't always well done. Like, I hate those Batman stories where, Batman solves a puzzle, but the clues aren't there for the reader. Not that I'm going to solve it, but, I just like them to play fair. And say, if you're going to solve this, then it is there if you're that type of person. Whereas, something like The Long Halloween, good luck trying to solve that from clues that are in the book.
Right. That would be a little difficult. But yeah, I like the way this was structured and, you go from clues to clues and then at one point Batman's like, I'm guessing since the trail of clues is going in this direction, I'll just skip over a couple clues and think that I will catch up with him where he was.
Yeah.
So the other thing, amazing, and even Batman was a little, he was a little impressed. Robin makes a noose and throws it around one of the goons' head, but it doesn't strangle him. He's missing, all the important things. It's textbook job, he says. He's missing the vertebrae, the jugular vein, and a nerve. And it's like, very good. He's a very good soldier. It's like, how do you do that? How do you put a noose around a guy's head and not strangle him? That's a new one on me, but Batman's thought of everything, apparently.
Yeah, and the fact that, Del Kane walks in and one of his, heavies is just hanging there in a noose and he's like, oh, he's not even upset by it. He's just kind of annoyed. It's like, this 13-year-old has basically just hung someone and you can't tell. He wouldn't go, oh, that guy's not dead. But,
no.
Yeah, but I mean, it has the little locales, like they spend some time in the sewer. They send, there's warehouse time, ticking all that off. There's, the car chase. Batman has his jalopy with the bat shield on the front. It's just got everything.
Yeah, absolutely, and even it has some I can't find the exact one. I was rereading it the other day. There's some choice words in here, and it's like, it's very 90s. Like, the one thug says, "Cripes, I warned you." It's like these phrases that you don't hear nowadays and there was another one, I can't think of what it was or where it was, but it was...
There's one where the guy says, "I'm going to give you a licking."
Yes, give you a licking. "I'm going to hang your carcass in Gotham Square."
Where is Gotham Square? Yeah.
I don't know.
But, and, there's bit, I mean, I remember around this time that, they would always keep track of bits and pieces that people used in movies. And, there's one bit that I'm surprised hasn't been in a movie where, Batman's just run the thug off the road and he's, sitting in the van at the bottom of the near the, what do we call it? The aqueduct. No, reservoir. He's down near the reservoir. Right. And Batman punches through the metal roof of the car and grabs the guy by the neck and then threatens him as, "I'm going to pull you through this jagged metal." It's like, it must have been tempting to put that in a movie if you're trying to, it's very, I am the knight, isn't it?
Yeah, and whenever I see scenes like that, it really takes me back to the warehouse scene from, A Batman Begins, where he's doing all these scare tactics.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of, that scene in that movie from different things. So
yeah, it's very weird when your plan to take out the bad guys involves hanging upside down.
Right.
And popping into view. I mean, looks cool when Batman does it, but when the Punisher does it in Warzone, it looks absolutely ridiculous because he dangles down from the chandelier and spins around shooting people.
Right.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's that sweet spot where no one knows who Robin is. He's just some kid in fancy dress running around with, spectacular muscly thighs. So they don't associate Batman with Robin at this stage, and yeah.
And they keep calling him Robin Hood.
Yeah. But, but the art in this is just gorgeous. Like, when they have the firefight on the fireworks barge, you see the close-up of the bad guy, Minette, and he does a shot with a shotgun. And the next panel is a long shot of the barge way in the distance, and you can just see this explosion blooming on the barge. It just looks fantastic. Yeah.
Or there's that one scene, there's the one scene where he's confronting Minette there near the end, and Robin, is there by himself. He has a shotgun on him, and then Minette kind of looks up and sees Batman. Batman's totally silent, and Robin thinks he just disarmed him and took him out. Because he's like, if only Batman could have seen this.
Yeah. So, but the end result is he passes his test, and there's a few times where Batman's about to jump in and save him, but Robin saves himself. So, I mean, that's really the only part where Batman cheats and intimidates the villain into surrendering. Yeah, and then you get a very old school cop telling Robin off, and then Gordon tells him he's done a great job. So.
Oh, that's where it was. I don't want costume scallywags running around in my precinct.
Yeah. And Gordon says, at his sergeant, he's like, Mother McCree, it's... Yeah.
But Robin thought these cards that he handed off, he thought it was some kind of porn ring or whatever, because these cards have, like, women in bikinis or whatever, and he seemed like a teenager... your typical teenager when it comes, what are they doing here? And it was actually, it was a listening device somehow embedded in the cards.
It was a microdot. So, yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the microdot?
From what I remember of old Mission Impossible TV show and stuff, basically it's a lot of information compressed onto a tiny visual, so, it can be read with a microscope. So I don't know how you make one on the fly, but someone obviously did.
Yeah.
And he stuck it onto, looks like a bikini on one of the
a playing
cards.
Card, like, embedded into the card. I don't know how those cards would still go together, but...
That's just a sticker, I think. But it's interesting because Robin looks at it and goes, oh, yeah, it's pornography, and I've got the evidence here. These cards are the evidence, and
because he didn't even know he went into the situation. And he thought this was just a test. He didn't know he was going to drop right into this, the beginning of the story where you see these mobsters and everything, and there's a undercover cop, that has a deck of cards, and he didn't even realize what he had.
Yeah.
And he's just jumping around from place to place trying to fool Batman, and he doesn't realize the situation that he's in, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a less heroic young man would have kept the cards too for different reasons. So.
Right. Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
That might be a different Robin, Jason Todd, or who knows.
Dick did take it up with Starfire, I guess.
It's been a while since I read this, and I really enjoyed. I tell you, the more that I look at these panels, it's like it fits right there in year one. It's not. I don't know how long Dick Grayson has been training, but he's to that point of I need to give him a test run. Let's do 4th of July weekend.
Yeah.
Because all the criminals, they're not going to be around 4th of July weekend. They're going to go to the seashore or wherever it is that you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a couple of bits of, sort of bad guy logic in the fact that, they're having a team meeting and, everyone's doing their reports, and then the guy who they've discovered is a crook, after the meeting and he's left is when the guy says, oh yeah, he's working for Gordon, so if you'd said that 5 minutes earlier, they could have, had no issue of story to tell.
Yeah, and they're sitting at the meeting, and the guy that's supposed to be undercover, he's just looking at his cards, and the one guy says, you should be paying attention.
Yes. Yeah. He's like Matches Malone at Step and Step.
Right,
Matches,
right.
He's got cards.
Right. But yeah, it's your average, big crime boss. You have a meeting table, and the boss is at the one end, and you have you're full of thugs. It is it's the Gotham City's financial hub.
Mm.
He's in the high rise, sort of like the Kingpin and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it was good that they resisted the temptation of making it a Falcone or, one of these existing mobsters that we've already heard of.
Oh, yeah.
You can have a new mobster in Gotham. It doesn't matter, and he gets wiped out in this story, so that's why you haven't heard of him since.
Absolutely, yes. And one of the things that I always look for when I look at these back issues is, especially when you have different artists on, what does the Batcave look like in this issue? And there's not a lot of Batcave. You do get some of the essentials. You get the coin, you get the dinosaur, you get, I don't know what that's in the back. It's like a costume of some sort. Maybe it's another Batman costume, because it's definitely not, the Robin costume, but very brief, and you see more of a workout room.
Yeah, well, it has that let's take the fitness seriously, because it has, weights and punching bags and things like that. In it looks like a little cave annex inside the cave.
Yes.
So,
which is cool.
Yeah, but he's obviously already got the coin and the dinosaur, so.
Yeah. Well, that had to be like year one when all those things happen, right?
Yeah.
Well, you sandwich year one from like the 30s to like the 50s, I guess.
Mm.
But then, when year one kind of restarted everything. So
yeah,
I do enjoy those old stories for what they are, but I do like the newer version. I don't know, have they ever done story? And I do a Batman podcast, but I don't know every story that's ever been written. I haven't read it all, but how they acquired the coin in like modern times. I know sort of the story that it was about way back when, and even the dinosaur, but I don't recall any story like that in like modern times.
Yeah, I couldn't say for sure. I can't remember one which explicitly says this is where the coin came from and this is where the dinosaur came from.
Right.
But I'm very much a post-crisis person, so.
Yes.
So that's, if you ever try and stump me, that would be where you'd want to go is pre-crisis.
Pre-crisis, just like Sean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hopefully I'm better than Sean, but you never know.
Well, anybody could, that's not saying much, so. Sorry, Sean, old buddy. You're not here, so.
Mm.
But yeah, this is one of these, and when I think back to the issue that you talked about prestige format, and you know exactly what we're talking about because they have the covers like this thicker, almost like a cardboard paper.
Yeah.
And inside is usually nicer paper than they did for the single issues, but you always had, it seemed like they'd come out with like 3 or 4 of those a year almost, or maybe even more.
I think at its height it was more. They were probably doing like 2 or 3 a month at least. And they were square bound, so I mean, I've always kept my prestige formats on the bookshelf rather than in a bag in a box. So.
Right. I mean, they
do have a spine that you can see.
I remember year one of like the Scarecrow, and I think they did Two-Face, and you had all kinds of Elseworld stuff. Even the Elseworlds, adding up all the different Elseworlds was a lot. And then they did crossovers with they did one with Captain America, I remember.
Oh yeah.
A lot of the different Marvel.
Yeah, the John Byrne ones. And those, year one annuals, I think they were actually, they weren't prestige, they were, thicker annuals, but they were a series of annuals that year. You know how they did themed annuals, like they do them for Bloodlines and things like that, and Eclipso. So, yeah, they were that for 1 year.
Yeah.
So.
No, we had we were talking about annuals at one point, and we were talking about the JLA Ape annuals. Do you remember that? Do you remember those?
I do remember the font. I've actually went out of my way to get all of them because there's something so goofy about them that I just wanted to own them.
Right,
Yeah.
and you look at it and it sounds ridiculous, but
But the Batman JLA annual is actually a really good Dick Grayson story as well, because it's basically a Nightwing story done by Chuck Dixon, but just put out as a Batman annual. So because it has Nightwing fighting the gorilla boss of Gotham City, which God bless comics that exists.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
But, thank you for a lovely 2022 of comics, Bill. It's been, a good year for the Bat Pod. And, I mean, you give Sean a lot of grief, but, I think the two of you are a great podcasting pair. Certainly.
Oh, thank you.
Really look forward to every new episode as soon as it drops. And, the coverage you give, you're just usually a few months ahead of me, but, it's always enjoyable.
Well, and we're sort of behind because we both get them in paper and don't necessarily go to the comic shops to pick it up. We get mail orders, so we're usually at least a few weeks behind.
Yeah, and it's quite the task to keep doing it forever.
Yeah, well, forever. No, it's a lot of fun. It's just two guys, almost like two guys going into the comic shop and just talking about the stories and that sort of thing. And it's fun. It's fun interacting with some of the other podcasters out there. So.
Yeah, a lot of weirdos out there. You got to look out.
Yes. Since I have you on here, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who doesn't know what you podcast about? I'm part of the Waiting for Doom show, which is about the Doom Patrol, which has been a fortuitous thing to pick to podcast about because it's, we've been doing it for 8 years now, and there's been a lot of Doom Patrol to talk about and cover. And I think we've covered all the comics that have been already put out about the Doom Patrol, but we've got a new volume coming out soon. And of course, we have to talk about the TV show. The other podcast I do, which may appeal to people who want to listen to a Batman podcast, is DC OCD, where we talk about every single DC event from Crisis on up, and usually have a panel on and we rate it. So we quantify how good it is using a scale of 4 factors. And what else do I do? The Gary Show, which is me and my friend Mike. We just talk whatever we need to talk about. That's the podcast you don't have to prepare for. Oh, what is that?
Yeah.
What is that? You just start talking.
Yeah, we just talk about.
To that one. I don't think I listened to that one.
Oh, it's quite funny, but usually pretty free flowing. But that's the one where we talk about what's been happening in our lives more than anything else. And the Dial F for Flanger. So my nickname is Flanger. So I do Dial F for Flanger, where I just talk to whoever I want to talk to about. So I've had a few comic creators on that, or people who do obsessive things with comics, and whoever's interesting to talk to at any time. So that's a good fun listen to as well. So.
Absolutely. I do have this. The Doom Patrol is actually, for whatever reason, is appealed to me. Ever since the Grant Morrison run, and I have every issue of every book that's come out.
Wow.
That has Doom Patrol on it. Now, the last series, I didn't necessarily read every issue.
That was a very haphazard schedule they had for that series.
Yeah. So eventually I'll have to go back. I mean, not every one appeared, like the John Byrne series I didn't necessarily fall in love with that. But anytime Doom Patrol anything, I always get it. And I really, the one I really liked was the John, and I don't know how to say his last name, Arcudi. Is that how you?
John Arcudi, yeah.
Yes, I really enjoyed that. I don't know why, because it had a lot of different characters except for Robot Man in it. But I really enjoyed that particular series.
Yeah.
And the way the artwork was done. And
that one really felt like it tried to do something new. Like you had the original 60s weirdness and then, the Morrison take on it. And then everyone has tried to basically redo their favourite take again. But I feel like John Arcudi basically said, I'm going to do an all-new team, and it will push the team forward with new characters. And it was very different and very enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to agree.
That's a good run. That's Volume 3 for those of you playing at home.
But yeah, so. And then what was it, Keith Giffen?
Yeah, Volume 5.
Had a run?
Yep. That was right before Flashpoint where they rebooted everything.
Yes.
With New 52.
And now it seems like, it's very much like the TV series. They have, the Chief is back and. Yeah,
well, the next series coming out is Mark Waid seems to be the architect of everything at DC right now, and this is spinning out of Lazarus Planet, so it's going to be the Doom Patrol in the DC universe, but having a bit of opposition to the way things are done. So it could be less weird and more DC mainstream. So I'm interested to see that because it's been a long time since the Doom Patrol have interacted with everyone, like Batman and Superman.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So
yeah, more comics to buy and talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. So. Well, I appreciate you coming on and joining me and talking about Batman books, and we will all be looking forward to the DCOCD, the next episode of that. I look forward to. I look forward to that every time. I was on there, a month or so ago with Joker War.
You were, yes.
Yeah, we talked a little Joker War. That was fun.
Actually, our next episode, if I can pitch it, we're doing an event tournament bracket. So we've got a panel of people and we're debating which is the best, and we're going to come from 32 events down to the best one. So that'll be a good discussion. And there's some cool prizes. There's some cool prizes if you put on a comment on the website about it, you'll be in the running. And I've got some Nicola Scott, those pictures she does of all the history of the characters together?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I've got 3 of those prints that are signed by her, and they'll be the prizes. So I've got the Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman one. So get on that, because they're cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely have to check that out. So.
All right, thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Okay, until next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. We will see you later.